My name is Doug Gerber. I'm with Weston & Sampson. I'm one of the consultants working with the City of Albany. We're working on Brevator Street. I think everybody here is familiar with the project, but what we're going to do is we're going to do a little recap of where we started. This is our second public meeting. So we had our first public meeting, I want to say back May. Pardon me if I don't remember, but it was some time ago, and we had a lot of discussions about two different options. Since then, we had an online survey. We had a good turnout on that. We have some information that we then used from that survey and the outcome of our last public meeting, and we took the two options and began to combine them together to create the option that you see up here. So if you didn't get a chance to see it when you came in, please take the opportunity to see it before you leave. It's a long street, and it doesn't fit very well on a lot of things. That's why we have a big, long piece of paper. The unfortunate side of that is when we project it on the screen, it does not get into a lot of detail. But a lot of what we're here to talk about today are the big picture, the big items, making sure that we talked about putting the big pieces in the right places. You may look at this plan and you may ask yourself some questions. You may live in a house and you say, well, where's my driveway? Sometimes the renderings may not depict some things that are on your property, but the intent isn't to remove those things, but to accommodate them. So, that being said, I've done the introductions. I've got Bill and Frank from the city. I think Avi might be here from somewhere from planning. Thank you. Thank you, Jenny, for being here too. So I guess we'll get going. So the other thing I'm not used to is holding a microphone and this at the same time. So eventually, I'm going to start talking into the wrong one. Finding a place to stand. I'm just going to quickly go through. Now, this is going to be a little bit of recap from our first meeting. Talking about the existing conditions. I think we all know the conditions out there aren't ideal. Wide weathered strip of concrete. We joke around, that's a landing strip. The overbuilt roadway could be reduced. It's not compliant. It's not pedestrian friendly. It's not always ADA accessible. Lacks pedestrian scale signage, street lights. It lacks street trees. The roadway has a tendency and is a little bit prone to flooding that I've heard in some areas, so we're looking at that. And Rosemont Park, which is a huge amenity on this side of Brevator, just doesn't have easy access. So we're talking about maybe providing smoother access into the space, bike racks, an opportunity to kind of feel like an entranceway. And we also talked a little bit about replacing the fence along the road. The Brevator Firehouse is a little bit different of a challenge. One of the things, we all noticed that it's got a very wide egress, like a big wide opening that comes out into the street. One of the challenges with reducing that down is that it tends to be, there's a lot of turning movements that the fire trucks need to make. So we need to accommodate them first. But we do have some strategies of dealing with it over there, and I think the overall plan accommodates it well. We've been calling it like a deficient barrier between Route 85 and the Harriman campus. It's kind of this, what I've been referring to as a cosmic landscape. I think the architecture is actually impressive and very neat. But as a resident, maybe looking across all that, maybe we can do some things in screening with some trees. There's lack of a meaningful tree canopy. So we're kind of talking about that too, and making changes to the lighting. Alongside that, our goals are to eliminate all the concrete. We're going to start fresh. We're going to tear everything out. And I know that there's some concerns about that in terms of what kind of noise that might create, but what we've been talking about is that we plan to saw cut the concrete into pieces and then have those removed. That doesn't mean it's going to be silent. It doesn't mean that you're not going to hear noises, but we're not anticipating the pounding or any of the things that you may be aware of that were occurring during the reconstruction of 85. So, that being said, we want to improve pedestrian connections, provide drive lanes, parking, bicycle routes. We're going to implement some green infrastructure, meaning that if there's ways that we can capture stormwater and to do better by our environment, we're going to do that too. We're going to we kind of talk about strategically reducing the firehouse egress, but we've got a little bit of a different way of approaching that with the outcome of the way that the options played through. And we're going to formalize the streetscape and provide pedestrian scale lighting. How am I doing with the microphone? Great, thank you. So with that, I think just by a raise of hands, and I'm not trying to embarrass anybody, but is everyone familiar with the street? If anyone not very familiar with the street, because I can skip over some of this and move along a little quicker. But basically, all I want to do to begin this off is that the maps that you're going to see as we move through are generally all oriented the same way. So in order to help you along, on this side, we have Western Avenue, and we're sitting right here right now. And this map may not be very easy to see, but they get a little better as we go along. This is Brevator Street. We have the Harriman campus up here, and over here, we've got Washington. Make sense? So with that, north is generally heading to the northeast, but the idea is to remove all this concrete, and we're all familiar with the space outside. And I may have a dead battery. No, there we go. So I'm just going to briefly touch on the prior options. So one of the things that we were trying to highlight was the idea of a multi-use or shared use path. What that means is that instead of just having sidewalks, we would have a wider sidewalk, so to speak, made out of asphalt that would also accommodate bicycles. And in order to do that, that's kind of what this first option talks about. And if you need like a little bit refresher on any of that, we do have the boards over there, and you can see those too. But the idea is to accommodate the street, bring in the street trees, bring in the planting, but also accommodate a shared use path. The second option was looking more at, I think I'm going to use like Manning as an example, where you have two opposing lanes, and down the middle there's a central like green median. So the two options, we have the luxury outside of a very wide right-of-way. That means within the public property, we have a lot of space to allow certain things to happen and still avoid some of the conflicts that sometimes we run into with utility poles and other things. So it's a little bit of a luxury. So we found a way to start combining the two. And we can get into more detail. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about the survey results. So this is the question. It's a lot smaller up here than what I had in my head when I was running through this at the office. So I'm going to read through it a little bit more carefully. The first question is, to what extent do you agree to the following questions? And they're really tiny. So, I feel safe and comfortable walking along Brevator Street. Another question is, I feel Brevator Street is well maintained and clean. The third question down, I'll use the benefit of this. Brevator Street has a strong presence of greenery, and Brevator Street is a pedestrian is pedestrian bike friendly. Now you can kind of visualize this chart. Strongly agree is on the left-hand side, and strongly disagree is on the right-hand side. Meaning, is it comfortable? Is it green? Do you feel safe? These are big questions. Generally speaking, the results are very strongly on this half. It's from somewhat to disagree to strongly disagree. I don't think that that's earth-shattering news. So, moving along from that, why do you typically travel on Brevator Street? And you can see that we have shopping, living nearby, shortcuts across the city, work, Rosemont Park, access to Route 85, in that particular order. So I can go through that a little slower, but I'm just going to point out that this is tall, and this has got a strong, this was pulled strongly, and so is the purple. Shopping, not a lot of shopping on Brevator. Living nearby is actually a very strong component of this. So this is your street, this is your community, and the people that responded lived within your community. That's good to know. Shortcuts across the cities, people use it for that. I kind of tend to. I live close by, but not that close. For work and for Rosemont Park. And then finally, it's access to 85. So we really want to maintain a lot of that infrastructure and those connections to get people to 85. We also want to start accommodating the community who's asking for some change out there. Moving on from that, how do you typically travel on Brevator Street? Bike, car, bus, walking, and other. So, but with that, we have a bike and car, bus, and walking, and the clear winner is that everybody travels it by car, obviously, because that's what's accommodated the best out there. How would you rate Brevator's visual environment? Not well rated. 1 isn't good. Okay, so it's a 5-star rating. Generally speaking, people find it unattractive. I kind of feel like I would like to make sure that you understand the results of the survey, but I don't think that anything here has been earth-shattering. This is where it starts to get more interesting and where we start influencing the plans and combining the two. So we're talking about what amenities would you like to see more of? And I'm gonna just work my way across. You can see the highlights of the more of things that people definitely gravitated to. One of them is the trees. That's bike racks, just means places to park your bike. Those will be factored in anyway, even though it's kind of low. But moving across, more greenery, bike lanes, more crosswalks, more green infrastructure, on-street parking, which had a kind of a component to it, but not as strong as the other ones. Street lights, making improvements to those. Benches and other. And other seems kind of bulky, but when you actually read through some of the comments, a lot of it just really reinforces back into these other columns. So with that, greenery, we're kind of on track, right, with our original goals. Overall, do you have any preferences between the two general design concepts? Ta-da. Thank you. I'm going to say that because I only say that as a consultant because many times we work on projects and maybe sometimes not everybody's has the same mindset. And sometimes we present options that are equally important. I may have a preference, but I really don't have skin in the game, so to speak. And I want to provide the community the best that I want to absorb the efforts and translate the community's ideas onto the landscape. What works well here is that along with the luxury of the space that we have, as we got into more detail, there's definitely a strong preference to have a shared use path or a multi-use trail. It's good news. I think that's a good move. The next one is the second option, which was the center median. So what we were able to do, like the no preference, well, thank you. That means at least we had some balance between the two ideas. But you can see there's a strong interest in the multi-use trail. So this is where we might deviate a little bit from Manning. When I think of Manning, I think of the center median, a drive lane, a sidewalk. Here, we have the opportunity to move that shared use path to one side and get all the pedestrian movements generally on that side. Do you feel safe crossing the street? It's a no. What improvements are top priorities to you? The multi-use path, landscaping, and other. And if parking's pretty low on that list. That doesn't mean we're disregarding it or removing it, but there may be cases where you may want to have some suggestions or some things that may be happening that we don't all know about. But the multi-use path, the landscaping are strong, and then generally again, it says other, and then please specify, but when you start to read into the comments, a lot of it has to do is just really is reinforcing maybe something that you don't like about what's out there today, or maybe some things about what the introduction of landscaping, safety, accessibility, being within the character of the neighborhood, those kinds of pieces. So finally, we're at what I'm calling the preferred option. Doesn't mean it's all done, but we're pretty far along. We believe that this is the system that works, and it's something that where we now have the big pieces in place to better help you understand. My mouth's getting dry. Must be the microphone. Is that we're starting to incorporate those pieces together. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through it. And it may not read really well, but I also encourage you to come up here. The plan up here is very easy to read. At least I find it to be. It's kind of big, and it'll get into a little bit more detail, and I'm happy to stick around and help answer questions. And what I may do at this point is just talk to this plan, because it'll help you orient you maybe a little bit better when you're standing up here. Same exact orientation. Western Avenue continues to be on the west side. You're here. I did get a couple of good questions. What are the green circles? What are the darker green circles? Those are good questions. We should have put a legend on here. I'm the fault for that. But what I'm going to get at is that, generally speaking, we're going to maintain the intersection here. We're having some discussions with All Saints about some of its interaction with the street. But the idea is if we can start introducing the central median down this corridor, we're still going to accommodate the bus lane here and the campus access road. Moving our way down, we have residences here, so there's going to be a lot of turning movements in and out. So you're going to see that there's going to be a break in the center median, like what you'd see on Manning Street, so that people can get in and out of their driveways. Some intersection improvements here. Again, more central. That's where I'm. Excuse me. So you have more of this central median. And then we're going to start to kind of break down in a little bit to more of a traditional streetscape, because remember, we've got all these turning movements coming in and out. Now, here's the big reveal. It took me forever to get here. One of the nice things that's working about this design, and although we don't have exactly bicycle infrastructure on either of these two main roads, the idea is to incorporate that bicycle infrastructure with the shared use path along our side of the street where we're oriented right now, or what I'm going to call the south side of the street, or the furthest from the Harriman campus. So along the residential pieces, it would be generally an asphalt 10-foot wide path that would accommodate bicyclists, walkers, and it would generally work on the side of the residences, its connection to the park. Across Melrose, we're also looking at this intersection where Belvedere is, where we're going to kind of narrow that intersection down a little bit, slow traffic down, and then continue on with our shared use path until we get to Western Ave. And there'll be two-way traffic on one side of the street. Now with that, I'm just going to look at the map to make sure I didn't miss anything, but generally we're maintaining the access onto the access road in Route 85. And we are also introducing, you'll see on here, lighting. And then the green circles that everyone's asking me about, those are proposed trees. So we're showing two types of trees on the plan, the ones that we intend to keep and remain. That doesn't mean that we won't have some conversations with the city arborist. Sometimes trees are just kind of past their prime. They're mature, and they may be in decline. So the effort to keep them may become a challenge. We are still identifying those a little bit, but generally, because of the way that the configuration of the road is, we feel like we can save many of the trees and keep as much of the greenery as we can, but also supplement it with new stuff so that over time they fill in. You'll have a streetscape, a canopy, because the addition of the street trees, the addition of the center median, controlled intersections, these are all going to start to help calm traffic, slow things down, and allow for the intersections, these node areas, to have the crosswalks and the connectivity you need, whether it's back into the neighborhood, even if in some areas you may have to walk on the street, but it also can bring you across and connect us up to the Harriman campus. So I think I covered a lot. I'm sure I missed something. And you may have seen this before at our last meeting. Just a little run through of some of the character and the design that you can use in your imagination when you look at the plans. It's the idea that we may have some green infrastructure, contained crosswalks with a center median, the shared use path and its delineators in the roadways, another center median with a curb like we plan to do here. And this is sort of the configuration of sometimes when you have to terminate a multi-use path into a roadway or into a sidewalk system. So with that, would you like to add anything? Or I'm happy to open up to questions.
Is there any way to just zoom into some of those critical cross sections before questions are open?
We can try. Everyone, but let's see. Just need something I can drive with. Can I lose this for a minute?
For a minute, it's just for the audio and video.
Okay. Let's see.
If it's a big effort, then don't.
No, I got tricked. So the brick over here that says sure on it, can I put this on there?
Yeah.
I caused chaos, right?
You did. You did. So, that's chaos.
Something to think about next time. School meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back on, and the thing is, I need an extra hand. Oh wait, you know what? Oh, that's okay. I'll use that.
Let me also say that this presentation will be online. This presentation will be online. Okay, as well as this video of the meeting. So if you didn't get it now, you will be able to do that later on.
Okay. It's like a Laurel and Hardy skit. So, I think you can hear me, and I think I can drive. And I'm probably standing in front of the screen.
No, you're great.
Of course, I'm using. Oh, I know what it is. Bear with me 1 minute. Oh no, you're okay. I can handle it. I can do anything. I don't get. No, it. So, so do you have a question in mind? I mean, is there? What would you like to see first? Put you on the spot. Okay, sure. I'm just going to start at one end of the street because this I might cheat up a little bit. This is a good one. So this is where Belvedere is. And in order to help better understand, so there's going to be a bus turning lane. I don't know if I can remember where I set. That looks pretty good. It's a little pixelated. I don't have my microphone. Okay. And that was loud. So here we go. We're going to the street. And along with that this is Belvedere where we're going to tighten up the roadway. We're going to increase and create bump outs in this area to neck down the road and put it on a diet and maintain the driveways that are there. This might be an example where somebody's thinking we're going to blow on up their driveway. That's not true. But we're going to create that connection. But where you can see is the main pieces. This is our multi-use trail running through. We have a lot of utility poles and things that are in the roadway, fire hydrants. We've been lucky, and we have the luxury of being able to mostly avoid that. That's a good thing. we've got rows, and these are the green circles that are the street trees. And alongside that, we've got more pedestrian scale lighting. So you're going to have more lights that are lower. And the higher the light fixture is, the more spread it's going to get. And right above you is a perfect example. These ones? Yeah, you know, so if you look on the plans, in some cases, we've put another tree, but those are actually existing trees. Okay? And that's just the surveyor, we used a survey, and that's the symbol that they had. Some of them might be. It's a Halloween decoration. Okay. But with that, along that, we have like a variety of street trees, and they're going to be selected. In some areas, you got some overhead light, or excuse me, some overhead utilities. So we're going to be a little selective with the plant materials that go underneath those to make sure that they don't start to crowd those utilities. We have our center median. We're still allowing left-hand turn lanes. So it's just going to calm traffic, slow things down. These drive lanes are 11 feet wide. There's been some recent improvements up here to the north. Gotcha. There's been some recent improvements up here, and we're just tying into those. So you had a question. How wide is the center median? Generally, it's 11 feet itself, too. Okay, so the road breaks up pretty well, 11, 11, 11, because we need the drive lanes, and then we kind of found opportunities to put the median within that. Does that help? Go ahead.
So you're saying that buffer between
Yeah, right here, you could say that's about 11 feet. It could be 11 or 12. That's, in the design world, we often have to come up with like the hard rules, roadway widths, median widths, all the math. And then sometimes we just have to have the remainder. In this case, it can fluctuate a little bit depending upon where the property lines are. So if you're looking for a hard number, it varies from 15 to maybe 10.
No, the only reason I'm asking is because that building, especially our house is right there, that is like the wall of the house. I'm curious
This new path on the existing pavement?
See, that's a good question, because that leads right into hers. And yep, I knew it was coming. So the idea is that generally. Oh yeah, happy to. Thank you. So what's being asked is she's pointing out that the building here is very close to the road, and there's not much room. He's kind of confirming or clarifying that. Are we working in that old wide airstrip? So if we think about the big wide concrete roadway out there, the answer is that we're working within that, and in order to avoid the utility poles and things, we're kind of at the curb generally. It's not perfect, but the curb generally, or that edge of asphalt, where there's some sort of asphalt parking, is kind of in this space. So what the result is that you're going to probably see from where you live is that you're going to have more green space before the road. The road's going to move away, a little bit away from you. Does that help answer your question? Okay. Sure.
If this proposed path is 10 feet wide, is there any reason why you wouldn't do 5 on each side? Two-way bike paths are dangerous as
No, maybe I didn't clear. Maybe I wasn't. So the total width of this is 10 feet, 5 and 5. Now, are you asking if this, why not put another one up here?
bike path going in the same direction as bike path.
Well, the benefit of the. Sorry, thank you. I'm glad this is all being videotaped. No, thank you. What he's asking is why can't we have the streetscape, or excuse me, the shared use path and the multi-use path on both sides, and that way we're continuing to use the route of traffic. There's a benefit to this approach because we're actually separating the pedestrian and the bicycle use out of the road. If we did 5 and 5, first off, we don't have quite enough room to get a 10-foot wide path up here. We just run out of room. I don't have that much luxury. But So what we'd end up with is more of a Manning Boulevard condition where it's like a sidewalk on one side and a sidewalk on another, and you can't, cyclists, in New York State, cyclists and pedestrians can't both share the sidewalk. So we're really consolidating onto the one side and the side that we feel is more appropriate. Does that help answer your question? Okay. Yes. Okay. So the question she has is, what's delineating the space between our multi-use path and the roadway? So that's a good question, because that'll help clarify some things. If I was in the bus lane, and I'm kind of looking back in this direction, the first thing that I would see is the oncoming traffic. We would see a curb, a granite curb, using the city standard, a green space, a median, and this median varies a little bit, but it's kind of where the remainder. But generally, it's maybe 8 feet sometimes, 11 feet. It's pretty good. So the trees and the light poles will act as a visual buffer between the roadway and the multi-use path. Same thing's going to happen. So the median may pop in and out of the design as you head towards Washington. But this condition, I actually want to say it remains continuous the whole way, and I don't think it breaks. It gets a little tight as you come down a little bit in front of Rosemar, because we're going to use some of that lane for parking, on-street parking. But there will always be a buffer, and I think down here it worked out to be about 4 feet. Hold on. I had to stand up a couple times. And I can repeat the question.
The one spot, the one block between.
Yeah, it dies out.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, it's
Parking there now. Is there parking in the design that compliant with there? There's on-street parking.
understood.
Is there on-street parking now?
So, nope, I understand. So, we're talking, if you couldn't hear, we're talking between Belvedere and Melrose, and we've got a lot of egresses here going up to homes. And something that's been brought to our attention is a lot of people do park on that street. This plan removes the on-street parking in that location. Okay, so that's something I think we'll talk about. Yeah? Okay.
What's the question?
She's pointing out that, no, thank you. Yeah. So one of the questions she had was, because the questions come up about removing the parking in front of here, and maybe that's not going to function well with the number of cars that are often parked in front of these homes. So we were going to relook at that, and she had just pointed out that, maybe it's worth engaging those people and asking them some questions. So. So what we're doing is, pointing to this plan now, generally speaking at Belvedere, and down here at Hawkins is kind of it's not exactly let's start here. The Belvedere connection is a little easier to do because it feels much more like a traditional, Microsoft Edge has stopped working. This feels a little bit more like a traditional intersection to me. So I think like we could probably say that by adding crosswalks and slowing traffic and creating a more traditional intersection that'll slow things and make them easier to cross. So I'm getting there. So the next one is Hawkins Street isn't as traditional, and I can't really pan over there very easily. But Hawkins comes in, it's kind of pointed at the fire station, and then we know that the access, it's kind of I'm going to say like an imaginary elongated intersection because things aren't quite lined up as well as we'd like. So what we're talking about doing is putting rapid flashing beacons at those intersections. It's called a rapid flashing beacon. You may have seen them. Yeah, like you hit a button and it lights up and it warns traffic that a pedestrian's crossing. Sure.
Yeah, hi. Can you discuss a little bit about people accessing the multi-path bicycles from and getting off of both Washington and Western? Like, the difficult terms, like some are, you see some being left-handers or right-handers, they're going to be more difficult than others. Do you have signalization or something planned, or how's that going to work?
That's a good question. I knew it was coming. So one of the pieces happening is because we have Western Washington and we're introducing this really nice multi-use shared use path. So the question is, if we have the shared use path down the middle, how does it tie into? Because a good way to visualize what's happening is that it's easy to accommodate pedestrians with crosswalks at an intersection like this. And it's easy to accommodate vehicles because we all drive cars. So these are things we generally experience. The cyclists have their own overlay that would have to work in tandem with the other two, meaning that if we have vehicular movements that we can all picture, because we do that quite a bit, and we have pedestrian movements we're all familiar with, what this plan isn't adequately addressing is that the connections for the cyclists and what they're supposed to do intuitively to safely travel on either of our bookend streets. My understanding is the city's got plans and are working towards putting bicycle infrastructure in those two places. They just don't have it there yet. So we can't introduce bicyclists into a dangerous condition, right? That overlay doesn't quite function the minute they leave our project area. And it's not that we can't just fix this intersection. It actually has to run the whole length of these streets for some distance. So the idea is that right now, at the ends, we're just terminating the multi-use trail. There's going to be a sign. It's probably going to say something or indicate that people will have to get off their bicycle and then start acting like more interacting with the space like a pedestrian would until those other things can be put in place. The infrastructure's in place. Does that make sense? Well, you're, sure. I guess, but just before I go into the detail, I'd like to clarify that we don't want to introduce the cyclists into an unsafe condition. In some ways, it's easy. We could run this out, and the one cyclist could take the right-hand turn and go with the flow of traffic. That kind of works. We can all visualize that. What starts to become a challenge is if we introduce that same cyclist and encourage them to go into this crossing. This is also kind of somewhat of an awkward intersection, right? They're not lined up as ideally as we'd like them to. So until that infrastructure here is safe for that cyclist to get from our street onto the roadway and give them a destination on that where they can safely travel, we want to hold them back and ask them to act like pedestrians until they can reacclimate into the street, whether it's walking their bicycle across, until they can get to the safe place and then continue on. It's not ideal, but it's, in some ways we're planning for the future. We're providing an amenity that may encourage these other improvements to happen. And I'm happy to go into an intersection. I just wanted to clarify.
Can I ask one more question about this frame before you move? Or we can go back.
Oh, we can go back. We got an easy way of doing it. So you can see that this intersection is starting to look a little bit more like a traditional, and the same basic things happening at the other end. So it starts to become a regular pedestrian condition. So does that answer the question? I know it's not the best answer, but we're planning for the future. So before I'm actually not sure where the question came from originally. Does it feel good? Oh, I'm sorry.
There'll be a sign there that says cyclist discount and use sidewalk and crosswalk.
Yeah, maybe with a please. You know, I mean, we know how that, you know, but yeah, that's the intent. I mean, that's what we're working towards, and we're trying to find maybe better ways to do it, but there isn't, without the outlying infrastructure, it's not easy to just come up with a quick solution that we feel safe. I'm losing track of who had their hands up. Actually, I'm going to.
The experience in other cities with multi-use paths of 10 feet wide, 10 or 11 feet wide, we're talking, being used by both slow-moving pedestrians, old people pushing baby carriages, with fast-moving cyclists.
So the question is, along our multi-use path, we're going to have people using different speeds. There's going to be cyclists, and there's going to be people with baby carriages, people walking their dogs with leashes. I mean, we can envision that. It's with the idea that everybody is on the same road, using it the same way, or using it the same type of roadway mentally for pedestrians and cyclists. People generally do the right thing. Okay, and
Not as wide. So Hackett's not as wide, it's not 10 feet wide, but it is the same multi-use. And I don't know if you spent any time on it, but there's all sorts of different people using it together. And usually it's, I would say a very aggressive cyclist is not likely to be like speeding down, this road because, you know, it's not even connecting to other things, so a very aggressive cyclist is gonna be wide, the longer.
I have experienced both good and bad on both sides of that. And there's no easy solution other than separating, throwing the cyclists into the vehicle.
yeah, and just to add on to that, I mean, examples in parks spaces, often there might be a 12-foot wide walkway, and those get more complicated. There'll be rollerblades, skateboards, bicycles, kids, dogs. So it kind of finds its own market sometimes. I'm going to move around a little bit. I'll come back. Don't be. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just on that note, I mean, one thing you could do is narrow the lanes a little more to 10.5 feet. You could actually fit a 12-foot wide shared use path, which would accommodate, give bikes and pedestrians more space. And all the uses that you said, you know, people walking dogs, people rollerblading, they're going to do that anyway because this is right in front of people's homes, so they're going to want to enjoy that space as well. So I think that would be one solution that would be really helpful because it would also slow down vehicle traffic on Brevator. One of the other concerns, especially with considering vehicle speeds, is the turning radius that you're using here on the bottom right. I know this is just a concept level plan and not an engineered drawing, but the turning radius is, you know, pretty massive and would allow vehicles to take that turn really quickly. It also, you know, widens that crosswalk significantly, so that distance that pedestrians have is going to be a lot longer. You know, they're going to be out very vulnerable for a longer period of time. So tightening that up would be a huge improvement. And then looking at how a pedestrian could cross Western, especially since we are putting all the bicyclists and pedestrians on this side of Brevator, how would they, you know, like a pedestrian or especially a cyclist trying to head downtown on Western, how could they legally or easily get from the shared use path to that route on Western? You know, do they have to cross both legs of Brevator? And is there a reason you can't put another crosswalk on that section?
There's nothing to tie into across here. We painted over another person's driveway with the green, but there's actually, to make that crossing would head somebody right into another intersection, or I'm sorry, into somebody's driveway. And the other piece of that's a little bit challenging is we talked about this offset. So it becomes a crosswalk that sort of becomes a mid-block crossing, We can take another look at it. I mean, we'll talk about it internally and see if there's another way that we can do it. But I want it to be there too, is the best I can say. But functionally, it doesn't happen as cleanly as it can. I do also want to just answer one other point of your question, is that we've actually reduced the radius of this intersection right here. So, and it's a little bit of a quagmire, some utilities there. So, but we have reduced it, and we also still have to remember accommodate the fire truck that's going to come back down through this route, and we don't want the fire trucks always like kind of ending up on that sidewalk and our landing. This one's a little bit more generous of a landing for the pedestrians. This one isn't so great, and it isn't because we're just disregarding it. There is a lot of utilities in one spot, so we're feathering the needle right there. Or I'm sorry, threading the needle. Thank you. So.
That's helpful. I just think that we know that both pedestrians and cyclists are going to make that cross anyway. So making sure there's a way to give them a crosswalk, a safe crossing, is super important. Because they're going to do it.
We'll continue to look at that in more detail. Yeah.
There already is one, so if you were to go and scroll down, you will see that right here is your crosswalk. So you're going from that corner to right here.
Oh.
This is a double crosswalk here for the school.
So would it be possible to extend the shared use path further downtown?
I don't know. We'll take a look at that. I don't know.
Thanks.
Hold on one second, because you had a question before I moved the screen.
Yeah, I'm particularly interested in the bump out at Belvedere, maybe because I live there, but also it's like the most new thing on this plan that I've seen. So the driveway extension, I guess that's a different conversation. I'm really interested in that 'cause it's my driveway, but
We can talk.
the concrete sections up here, it looks like that's like a 25-40 section of concrete on the left-hand side, on the top left, like the white part.
Oh, right. Understood.
Can you incorporate sort of like plantings or greenery into that so it's not just a huge block of concrete?
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit with the city, but we can probably reduce. Thank you. So the question is can we introduce, because of these intersections that look like there's a lot of concrete here, can we shrink them down a little bit or provide some green space? One of the things that we're looking at is maybe this is an opportunity to incorporate some of the stormwater management. We're just working out some of how that's going to play out. But I do agree with your comment. And I got it back. So we'll take a look. Actually, I think you've had your hand up a few times.
I'm just for this guy, I think, who's gonna maintain this for the winter? Who's gonna plow it?
So my question would be for the city, who's gonna plow that walkway?
Maintaining the multi-use path so the question is seasonally, how will the multi-use path be?
Do it. It doesn't get done, let's be honest, it doesn't get done at the moment of the storm. Maybe, a little bit later the next day, but it doesn't really get done. Similar to a lot of the other multi-use paths in the city that, again, get the same treatment.
Are additional resources, Frank, being built in to sort of support the increased demand of all the new streets? I'm just curious, like, will you get more people to help plow?
Well, it's always the hope, but,
Not necessarily.
if you could get people to want to work, we'll take it. Do us a favor, find some people for us.
The, the question is,
But don't come empty-handed, bring people with you that want to work.
so the question was, can more staff be brought on to help maintain the city? And,
We bought a specialized machine for that too.
okay.
We have a lot of bike lanes in the city now. We have a lot of multi-use pedestrians. It's a specific machine, actually comes from Europe, and it does the path, then you put the back on accommodate that.
Similar, you're talking Skyway, the South End connector, these are bike paths, right? So it really does work.
So the crew specifically assigned to do those areas that, with a special, it's called multi-op machine, and it does the job well.
Okay. Special machines purchased Maintenance to the trail will happen. It just may not be as immediate as you'd like it because they're going to be focusing on the roadways at first. Actually, she behind you. No, you.
I just
Her.
want to take a minute to say, thank you so much for Center for Meeting and all the other work that you've done on this, and love the trees so much. Thank you so much for making the priority. I think it's going to do a world of good for the neighborhood, so thank you.
Well, thank yourselves because you also helped us make it a priority. Thank you. Yeah, go for it.
Going back to multi-use paths, dealing with pedestrians and cyclists, if it's really busy, what I've seen done in Rhode Island specifically is they use signage that says pedestrians walk left, cyclists ride right. That way, if you remember your mother always told you to walk basic traffic, then cyclists will always, you'll see each other rather than just, biking up behind somebody and going around quickly yelling on your left and they were in headphones.
Oh, okay.
So it avoids those kinds of situations.
So it sounds like you've been using the other bicycle facilities that are currently in Albany. Do you find that like you need the signs there too, or?
They were there like on several of the trails that are really busy, especially the Helderberg, the rail trail.
Okay. I appreciate that. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to processing too much at the same time. He was just asking about whether there could be signage on both sides of the shared use trail that kind of remind users that the cyclist should be at, like, I'm sorry, was it on the outer edge and then?
Pedestrians walk left and there's signs.
Yeah. Oh yes. Keep left. Yeah.
Pedestrians walk left, cyclists ride right. That way, people who are.
I don't understand that because we got people going both directions.
Right, but it's just like a roadway. I mean, your mother always said walk facing
I
traffic.
know we've got people going both ways of the same.
Yeah, and the other thing is that cyclists are always supposed to give pedestrians the right of way. That's the given that's behind it all. But if a cyclist is coming up, the pedestrian sees the cyclist sees, you see each other. And you don't have to worry about people sneaking up behind you, always looking over your shoulder. If you can see each other, you're more likely to avoid each other.
Okay. Questions? Yes.
Is there an estimate as to when this might be done, or when it might start, and how long it might take?
Sure. Estimate of when it might start, be done, and how long it will take. Start in the spring and in the fall.
Of 2024?
Yes. Yeah, 2024.
I thought you wanted us to wait till 2028.
No, this looks really good. I'm actually alive to see it.
Go ahead, please.
So, more about construction. Earlier you mentioned that they're not going to use hydraulic ramps to remove the concrete, they're going to use blades and they're going to cut the concrete. I would just ask or recommend that there be some dust control issues put into the contract because cutting concrete creates a lot of dust. And that dust can be harmful.
Absolutely. And DEC is going to require us to
There are a lot of ways to reduce
capture that.
but it has to be put in the contract so that the contractor knows he has to comply with it.
So when we cut up the roadway, we're going to create dust. And but we can use water to help mitigate dust in the air. And he's absolutely right. We're going to have to put in stormwater management practices that are going to keep that contained anyway, and keeping it wet's going to be one of the ways to do it for dust control. So you're right on point. Of course.
I just wanted to add on that DGS usually gives notice that it's happening, and I would encourage people that live on it to also, I would recommend doing things if you live on the street to mitigate dust in your house. I don't know what that is exactly, but that's what I would do in addition to that.
Oh, 1 second.
You mentioned one of the objectives is improved access to park. How is that? I don't really see that.
Oh, it's not super fancy yet, but it's Making our way down there. Not the fanciest of drawing, or my orange line's a little in the way. By improving access to the park, so Rosemont Park's here, there's the basketball courts are right here. And there's generally like a kind of an open field space right here, and it's across from the access road. So the idea is to just continue that crosswalk directly in. There's a new sidewalk that looks like that's out there right now. Some of that's going to come out and be removed and maybe reconfigured. Well, be removed to allow for the multi-use path. But we're going to just continue that in. And then we've got a pad here, and we've been talking about different things we might put there. But the idea would be like maybe some benches, or have some benches more into the park, or we would have bike racks there, because you would be able to, might be a good place to take a break if you're making a big trip. Actually, we do have parking in front of the park. This is just a little bump out area. Can you see that? So, but to the left and to the right, we would have on-street parking.
My observation was a lot of the basketball, in particular, people either walking from another neighborhood, so that's positive, that you can do walk. And then there are people that drive in the park. There's a lot of places to play basketball.
Okay. Who's been having their hand up quite a bit for a while that I haven't touched base with? Oh, yes, you've.
Can you go back to the other end of the street? And not just anybody else that has like.
No, it's okay. It's no trouble.
So I think you let in to say about the parking remains in front of the park. What will parking look like in front of our school? We have 191 families that come in every day, 35 staff. And I want to ensure that our neighbors, we can remain neighborly, but also plan ahead.
So maybe I misunderstand what's happening today, but the parking across the street from where we are right now, that on-street parking would remain.
So it will only be one side of the street.
Only be one side of the street.
Thank you.
That easy? Okay, I'll take it.
But then my next question.
She opened the door for me tonight, so I had to be very nice. She let me in.
If we go back to now that we're integrating sidewalks from Western Ave to Brevator on this corner, they don't exist right now. The grade and the angle, to touch base on some of the rest, as well as what I envision being a very dangerous entrance to the school parking lot, because it's close to the light. Over the years, and those that had their kids here or worshipped here knew it used to be a one-way in and a one-way out. And it kind of came up at that other meeting. I want to make sure that those engineers are making the safest plan for that space, or should that space be moved, the entrance, to accommodate pedestrian safety, cycle safety, because in reality, it's 3 points of an eye and you're around that corner. But now we have introduced walkers to an area that has never been, because there is no sidewalk. Our crossing guard, if children have to cross, they have to go across Western here, by our crossing guard from the Albany Police, and they have to walk this way. Children are not allowed to cross this corner ever. So my concern is that for the first time, we have introduced pedestrians and cyclists in what's to be a safe way in an area that has more cars than they've ever seen in a pedestrian space. Does that make sense?
So by this access point, due to the congestion and some of the changes that are happening around it, that may not be, you don't think that may be the best place for access?
On your diagram, it looks safe, but if you go stand on that corner in reality, it doesn't look like that.
Okay.
So will you be regrading, resizing to ensure that you do have that kind of space there, leaving our entrance,
Okay.
like again I'm saying,
I think we're just trying to reuse the existing entrance, not realizing that there's an issue there.
Okay. Yeah.
that there is no sidewalk. It is just a
I know.
So
CDTA people do stand in that area.
In that area being,
There's a bus stop.
okay. Oh, gotcha. Thank you. So, so basically, because of some of the congestion in the entranceway to the, that's right outside, we're gonna look at it closer and talk about it. Sounds good. Before I come back to you, you ask good questions, but you always put me on the spot, so no, I'm just kidding. But just anybody else that I haven't touched base with that's been meaning to ask a question. Yes, you haven't asked one.
Question about the new street lighting. Like, is the design going to be such that it won't be, you know, casting bright light into people's homes late at night?
No, that's not the intent at all. So the idea would be that the street lighting is going to function, so it's going to be lower, so we need more poles. The idea is really to project the light out over the street. There's a lot of controls. The way that the light fixtures can be lensed, we can direct the light away from homes and out of people's backyards. That doesn't mean there's not going to be some light spill, but it's, well, I don't want to make any guarantees, but I would say that due to the height of the lights and the style that are out there today, there's much less control. So when we have this, we're going to do as much and put as much energy of the light into the roadway to keep that safe, secure, and easy to see. So, anyone else? Sure can. Oh boy, here we go, all the way down.
So the next question goes somewhere else.
Yeah. It just takes a while to get there. It's a long road. So, why is this cut off? That'll work.
How long is that street?
3,000 linear feet. Roughly, I don't know. It's close. I think it's actually a hair more, but I can't remember the last couple digits. But 3,000. It's a good start. So we're there. What's your thoughts? It's much of the same way. This side functions a little bit better because although Washington doesn't have the infrastructure in, it does have more of a traditional square. Everything's aligned. So I think like in the future, this will be an easier one to tie in as a multi-use. I'm assuming that's your question, and I shouldn't presume, but ask your question.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that point stands as well. What is the dashed line on the roadway going?
This right here? Oh, well, I'm going to back up. I keep very unprofessionally looking into the lens. So one of the things that's going to start to happen, and I'm going to play that route through my head real quick, but what's going to happen is like say a cyclist is coming from this direction, they're going to need to, we're going to sign here and dismount them at that location, and then they can get on the road. And at least they can then use the traffic to make the proper turns. So like we are helping one case because it generally lends itself in this intersection as a little bit more traditional.
And the cutout, is that parking area?
Parking, yep.
They're in the same spot, which is a little inconvenient or tricky. Yeah, I think this intersection feels a lot better than Western. Are you touching curb on the other end of Washington?
On the side. We're not making any improvements over there. As far as I know, everything's like ADA compliant, everything ties in well. But so that's not the intent at this point.
Yeah, I think that one other opportunity we have here is if we can straighten out the crosswalks as much as possible again to reduce that distance. That might not be possible here, but it looks like it potentially could be.
Could be.
Yeah, that would be good.
I don't have it, there's a house right there.
Yeah, I kind of don't have the map there. There's some utilities that might look like it in the way, but I mean, we can talk about it. Did that answer your question? Please.
Jumping in on the same sort of general topic of how to get cyclists and pedestrians safely across these streets where there's new access points for cyclists or pedestrians. Would it be conceivable to adjust the lights so that it would be an all-way pedestrian crossing when the bay buttons were hit, a barn stand style setup? That could potentially get cyclists and walkers
I've got a great resource to answer that question because we did talk about this at one point.
I'm with track. We have looked at that in the past, we can look at it again. We'll certainly look at it, I'm not gonna make any guarantees. The operation of the intersection at both ends needs to be examined as part of this, and we'll see where we can go. We can't make any guarantees at this point, making an exclusive pedestrian interval at both of those. I can probably say that for a lead pedestrian interval in, it's been proven to work. We'll get pedestrian out to the road before more vehicles start moving. We are implementing that at one of our locations. We just are launching them on Western Avenue, and we're gonna keep advancing that. But the exclusive pedestrian, we'll do that also. I'd like to second that. We hear that a lot. It's really difficult. It's trying to balance all, it's trying to balance everything. More vehicles, bicycles, and cars, trying to make that balance for each street and complete intersection. All right.
Yeah, I mean, one more question, or do you want to?
Yeah,
Oh.
we're done. We want to wrap it up. I got a couple of announcements.
Okay.
We're done?
I got 2 questions. Is that where we're at? We can just do this quick. How can I help you?
What happens next in this process?
That's what I'm
Oh,
talking
okay. You help.
Question/comment. So just as a reminder, the Melrose Neighborhood Association collected a number of additional questions, and we'll share them with Alex to make sure he has them as sort of like, but just wanted to share that because I think some of the folks that maybe shared with us may not be here, so just as a comment.
Yeah, if you get to Ginny can get it to us.
Okay, let me ask this question. Let me ask this question. Did they go through the online form? Then we have them already. Okay, then they need to be sent to us. Okay.
There really was a way to use the neighborhood association as an effort to like collect some additional questions.
Yep.
We talked about it with Alex before, so just wanted to make sure everyone knew that.
Yeah, but the online forms are there for a reason. We ask everybody to use them because there's a central point where it goes.
Respectfully, we
Yeah.
sent them after, and it was something, it was a shared discussion.
Okay.
We'll compare.
All right, we'll compare.
Once you give it to us, we'll.
So I want to talk about the next step in the process so that everybody knows where we're at. There is a web page that for this project. On there, we add whatever documents this is being filmed. This will be put on there for anybody who wasn't here tonight. One of the reasons you had to use the microphone so that this was all on, so they could hear. This PowerPoint will be also put on there so you can see it. Any additional documents that are created as trees are looked at, as when the final design is put up, it'll all be put there. So what we ask everybody is to continue to check the website. That's the place to go as the stuff gets posted. We will try to let the neighborhood know when that's happening, that we're putting it up so they can direct it at the meeting and tell everybody to make sure they look. But if you want to know what's going on, check the website, because that's what we're doing. We're putting on for any of these projects, and even once the work gets started, as there is updates to any project, we're moving from this phase to this phase to this phase, it's on the website. So that's what we're asking everybody to do, okay? AlbanyNY.gov, all right? And then when you go there, there's a projects page, and you'll be able to get all the information that you need for whatever project. And that's also other street and road projects that are going on, Lark Street, Clinton Avenue, any other projects. There's a page for all of that, so, okay?
You're gonna go up for proposals for a contract?
The next thing is we're gonna have, in the next 12 months, 8 months, we're gonna have more than 6 for you guys. Yeah, in the meantime, we're gonna take this project, put it in a package, and go out to bid. We're gonna go out to bid, that's state law, we have to do that. In the meantime, while that's happening, our arborist is gonna take a look at the trees that are there today, and take a look at it and say, this has to go, I'm recommending this to go. And that's gonna be all updated on the website again.
Yeah.
This tree is gonna go because of this disease. This tree is not gonna let. And then we transfer that information to them. Then we'll receive packages sometimes, in the spring?
Probably February.
February, yeah.
We'll receive a package, we'll vet the contractors,
Yeah.
right? Go to the lowest responsible bidder, but who has a track record. And then we'll sit down with the contractor and negotiate a starting date. And that's gonna be a hard date, it's gonna grab money in the fall. Because he has to.
No, in April. In April. Yeah, in the spring.
And then we're gonna make them a hard date. We like to do a hard date to finish the project in the fall. Because stuff comes and we don't wanna have cones and we don't have holes and stuff. So that's really what's gonna happen next. In the next 6 months, we'll have a package, go out to bid, and then we'll have to look at the trees, and then we'll
There'll be notification letters that'll go out when we get closer, door hangers that'll get put up. But again, the website is your friend. It's going to answer all your questions. It's going to tell you everything that he just told you, but with certainty and dates. We don't want to just say, oh, it's going to go out, and then you're going to be waiting. Oh, March 1st, it should have went out. I don't see it. Well, it's March 2nd or it's March 1st. That'll be on the website. So it explains every step. It's on there. Please check it out. Yep.
Just, there had been, I had gotten a bit of outreach about, and I know that Jay is not here, but I also know that you probably know about, he likes to do like a different types of trees. Because there was some concern about planting all one kind of
Oh,
tree.
yeah.
If you can just
Touch
say
upon
some
it?
high
Yes.
level
Yeah.
things on
Yeah.
that.
What happened, what we discovered is that instead of, for example, somebody 60 years ago planted all ash borer trees.
Ash trees. Yeah.
And ash trees. And then, because they were cheap, everybody had them, everybody put them. Then we have the ash borer disease. So what happens is now we're facing is that streets are being really eaten alive with this bug, and we have to take down trees up. So our arborist has suggested to have a diversified tree planting, so that if we get a disease, instead of losing the whole row, we'll just lose those trees and replant them. So you want to...
Yeah. So he, basically what he'll do is he'll go out, he'll take a look at all of the trees that are here. He'll see the health, if they can be saved, and they're not going to, one of the things that happens with these projects is they may be healthy now, but when you're done with the construction, they're going to die because of, exposing roots and, whatever it might be. So he takes a look at all of that, and then he designs basically the street. There's always a lot more trees planted than usually than what are there. In some cases, not in the same locations. Sometimes there's too many in one location. He does a complete plan. That will be posted online, so you'll see that. And then when the project happens, there'll be a plan. Then when the project happens, sometimes that plan gets tweaked. So it's not exact, but you will get letters, property owners that in front of the home, so the people who live right there will get letters stating that we're going to be putting a tree in front of your property. This is the type of tree we're doing, and you have an option to opt out if you really don't want the tree there or whatever, because we don't like to put trees in front of people's homes because they will kill them if they don't want them there. So, believe it or not, we've seen trees on fire, trees get shocked. Oh yeah, it's bad. Somewhat optimistic question, but are there any non-tree related planting plans, or is it sort of just going to be grass? Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
as
No.
you mentioned, there's going to be some infrastructure, water infrastructure, stormwater.
So green infrastructure.
I
Yeah.
call that, I don't know if I'm using the right term, some sort of a garden, rain garden,
Yeah.
right? There might be a possibility for us to incorporate that into the project here. So,
Who is the arborist?
Gentleman's name is Jay Levine.
Jay Levine.
Yep.
Can I ask a drainage question?
Yeah.
Melrose Avenue has been known to flood in the past. And I would hope that whatever drainage you end up with here does not result in more water coming down Melrose Avenue when we have big rains.
We talked about this, right? This is the conversation we had at the last meeting. So it's because of the lull. This is the one where the lull at the bottom of the street.
Can you repeat the question?
So I'm scared. So you were there to remind me. So well played. The question is about drainage, and that on Melrose that there's some flooding that's happening in the roadway.
In the past, there have been, and this could be another way we get done, that's all downhill, like Melrose touches Brevator, all the way down to, Winter, it's all downhill. And when there are big rains, there's a lot of flooding. I just don't want this project to exacerbate what's happening when we
Good
have
word.
big rains.
So Generally speaking, because that we're putting the road on a diet, we're reducing the amount of hardscape. Hardscape allows water to travel faster. So by slowing the water down, that will help a little bit. And we are going to look at basically making the improvements to the stormwater system along the roadway to capture the rainwater that's hitting it. There are some pieces to this puzzle that we'll probably have to talk about, but sometimes the watershed is the contributing watershed. The water is coming from this direction because it's downhill. We don't have a whole lot of control over that.
Water's coming the other way.
Water's only coming this way? Yeah. Okay, well, then I'm just going to end it there. But I will say that we're going to look at it, and the plan that we have, the intent is to help control and contain stormwater so it shouldn't exacerbate the problem.
And I brought this up with the team in the past, but it's also really important to loop in the water department because, as this gentleman mentioned, it's just all part of a larger plan. So throughout the entire port, there's a lot of flooding that we've had. So the beauty of the water department is it's not just the mitigation on the road, but also ensuring that they might want to do extra to help our neighbors further down on Melrose have less flooding. And even further down from that, because as like roads, the less water we can put in the infrastructure, the better. So
Yes, yes. And then,
it's another shout out that hopefully the water department will be dramatically looped in so that they can take advantage of this to take as much water out.
Yeah, traffic's gonna be moved in, fire department obviously is gonna be moved in, concern, so.
We need to get a concept first before we can
Right.
bring a bunch of chiefs in.
then they're going to change it all. No, I'm kidding. Live mic. So with that, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, thank you for coming.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.